Hey, what's up guys, Rev here. So it's official, in only 4 days, Overwatch 2 has managed to become the most negatively reviewed game in Steam history, with negative reviews totaling in the 6 figures and growing with every single hour. Not to mention the fact that these negative reviews contain some of the most brutal messages you'll ever read. Now before we get into that, let's just set the scene. So last year, Overwatch 2 releases as a free-to-play game with microtransactions, which is unfortunately the route a lot of games go these days. This is different than its predecessor, and a lot of people were already concerned about that, but a lot of people were disappointed on its launch because the game, Overwatch 2, promised to have a great deal of PvE content to the point where it resembles something like an MMO. Well, the game releases with no PvE content, with promises it will come in the future. Now, fast forward to August 10th, 4 days ago as of recording this video, they finally released this long-awaited PvE content in a new bundle called Overwatch 2 Invasion. Now, here's the problem. Not only was this PvE content delayed, it is paywalled. You have to pay $15 to have access to this promised PvE content, despite this game being free to play. Worse yet, the PvE content that is available is very underwhelming and doesn't contain many of the promised aspects like hero mode that the developers of this game said would be a part of Overwatch 2. Now, this is the perfect storm of negativity because you have frustrated players who were given a lackluster version of a promise they were given, combined with the fact that this is an Activision Blizzard game and their reputation is already horrible. People are already looking for any reason to go after them because the list of grievances against them is so long, it's hard to keep track of everything. So at that point, it's already bad, but things got worse because this Overwatch 2 Invasion bundle was released on Steam. This is not something Overwatch has done before, so when this dropped on August 10th, it gave players of the game a much more direct route to show their disappointment with this game through Steam's review system. Well, I will focus in on this just to show you guys how bad it is. So right now, as of recording this video, in 4 days, Overwatch 2 has received 110,000 overwhelmingly negative reviews. This is absolutely brutal, and it is the most negative reviews any game has ever received in Steam's history, and they managed to do it in only 4 days. Now, of course, to give you some perspective, Skullgirls in a month was around 5,500 negative reviews. This dwarfs that number. And the question also stemming from that, will these negative reviews be wiped clean like they were with Skullgirls? Well, probably. I mean, knowing Steam at this point, that's a likely option, but just take in that number. It is an absolutely huge number, and the reviews, the actual messages people were posting in their negative reviews are absolutely brutal. So let's read a few of those. Here's one of the most helpful reviews saying, "I don't know which Blizzard treats worse, its players or its female employees," which honestly, a very valid statement because Blizzard treats its employees very negatively as well as its clients, its customers, and even within Blizzard itself, the employees treat each other very poorly. I mean, it'll live rent-free in my head for the rest of my life. The fact that a female employee claimed that her breast milk was stolen by one of her coworkers. Like, things like that you just don't forget about, okay? And this comment is very fair, and things get worse with these reviews here. I mean, these are some of the most popular reviews of Overwatch 2. Let's just read some of them. So it says, "The people who make Overwatch porn work harder than the people who make Overwatch. Porn's so good, they made a game out of it. Bad game, good porn." These are some of the most well-supported comments and reviews of Overwatch 2. And they all center around the theme that, well, the porn is the best aspect of anything that's come out of this franchise. And you know what? They're not that wrong. So this discussion about the relevancy of porn and Overwatch, as well as who to blame for the lackluster performance of Overwatch 2, is something that was very heavily talked about on social media. So let's look at a couple of posts. This one, when I first saw it, I thought it was a shit post. I thought this was an edited meme or something. But I went to the actual community hubs of Overwatch 2 and Baldur's Gate 3, and this is in fact real. So if you go to the community hub on Overwatch 2, you'll notice there is no artwork tab. There is no available artwork to look at. And the reason for that is very, very obvious, and that's porn, okay? there's clearly such a small demand for safer work Overwatch artwork that they're not even bothering. They've pretty much admitted defeat here. Like, Blizzard has actively waged a war on not safe for work content based on their assets for many years now, and they're pretty much just waving the white flag at this point. Like, they can't do anything to stop it, and they don't even bother with any sort of artwork, especially when it comes to safe for work. It's just not even in their interest anymore. And I feel like this is an absolutely beaten to death conversation here, but it still needs to be said how much porn has played into the relevancy of Overwatch as a franchise. If there wasn't porn, if it wasn't such a massive part of the franchise, it would have been shut down years ago. It is unbelievable. You see it in the reviews. The vast majority of the reviews are talking about porn. They're making some sort of joke or comparing it to and saying that that's better than the game itself and the best thing to come out of the franchise. And you see it in tweets, and you see it pretty much just in any conversation about Overwatch. And it's hard to understate how important it's been. I mean, I can show an image like this, and I know there is a good portion of you who know exactly this video. You know it just based on this still. And that's all there is. And you can say, oh, Rev, that says a lot about our society, that a game only stays relevant because of the poontang that comes out of it. Well, think of that as you will, but at the same rate, it's undeniable. It's played a huge role in its relevancy. But nonetheless, there was a lot of people observing these comments and these negative reviews and how much attention and responses that they were getting, especially support. I mean, all these negative reviews are getting a great number of support. However, Noodle here, you might know who this person is, had a problem with this particular review, saying that the people who make Overwatch porn work harder than the people who make Overwatch. They made this quote retweet saying, "Crazy and cool and awesome how being unhappy with a video game is justification for y'all to disrespect and insult the hundreds of devs who can't do anything about it." Who can't do anything about it? They're the ones making the game. Of course they can do something about it. Now, I'm not blind to the fact that developers aren't 100% to blame for a game's bad performance. Of course, leadership plays a big role. If they give them limited resources or a certain route they're supposed to go down creatively, they have to abide with that and they have to work with that. And that can make things harder, but it doesn't make it impossible to make good content. And if they don't deliver, even under the circumstances, they can still be the ones at blame. I mean, it's like saying, you have a restaurant and the manager is bad. He's an idiot. And the menu is not very good. And he chooses that menu and it's very limited. It's not that great. But you can still criticize the cook if they burn your food, right? Just because they're working under a limited menu or not the best leadership doesn't mean they can't perform well in their individual roles. And from the reviews on Steam, it seems like the PvE content is lackluster. A lot of people are just underwhelmed with the content itself. So the developers are to blame for this. You have to have someone to blame, and it begins with the developers and the leadership. They shouldn't be immune just because they're working under someone. And a lot of people also pointed this out, that they said they were never going to play Overwatch 2 anyway, so it's like, why are you even weighing in? But nonetheless, there's another very interesting thing that people have observed about the negative reviews on Steam, and it's that a lot of them come from Chinese users. So how did this happen and why is it happening? Well, this user explains, saying that nearly 2/3 of the negative reviews when it was at 100K are written in Chinese, with 97% of them being negative. So on the surface, the Chinese reviews mention a lot of the same elements as reviews from the rest of the world: the lack of promised PvE content, criticism over in-game content pricing, and perceived downgrades compared to Overwatch 1 are cited in all language reviews. However, why are there so many negative reviews from China? Well, it turns out that back in January of 2023, Battle.net and NetEase ended their agreement for the distribution of Blizzard PC games in China, and just led to the complete shutdown of Overwatch 2. And they say, to cut a long story short, gamers in China have been upset over losing their accounts and ability to play on the national server with no announcement of a return so far. The launch on Steam is the first time that gamers from China can vent on an open and international platform, with many taking the opportunity to do so. And the reason they're able to do this is because Steam is not banned as an international platform in China. So they had the option to actually review this game and to get this new bundle, where of course they took the opportunity to voice all of their grievances with not only Overwatch 2 in this specific bundle, but with Activision Blizzard as well. So it led to a very high volume of Chinese users flooding the negative reviews and making things a lot worse. And this is a good point of comparison. A lot of people are comparing the experience with Overwatch 2 to Baldur's Gate because it's two completely different things. And you can see the reviews on Baldur's Gate releasing only a week before Overwatch 2's latest bundle. And you can see the reviews. Almost 100,000 overwhelmingly positive reviews and 156,000 very positive reviews up until the date of this video. And it's like, well, what's the difference? Well, this is a game that's not a free-to-play microtransaction game like Overwatch 2 is. They're not paywalling promises. They're just making a game. And it's a lot easier as a studio and a developer to get a lot of support from your fans when you don't have a scandal every single week like Activision Blizzard does. And Baldur's Gate 3 has served as a very interesting spectacle to observe in the gaming sphere because it's a game that's very positively reviewed, and it's also served for us and our community as a point of comparison of how people have treated the sexual themes in this game versus Japanese games. Unfortunately, fortunately, the only real difference between this and previous examples that have been used as comparison points is that Baldur's Gate 3 is a very good game. It's very well received. So you have a good game, and it also serves as a point of comparison to point out hypocrisy on how Western games are treated versus Japanese games. But nonetheless, I don't want to get too off topic there, but that is the legend of Overwatch 2. It is now the most negatively reviewed game in Steam history, and they did it in only 4 days. And yeah, I mean, really, there's no one to feel sorry for in this case because it's deserved. It's deserved at this point. But that's going to do it for this video. Please share all of your thoughts about today's topics in the comment section down below. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.